righties. And if you, again, hang anything, he's going to hit it out of the ballpark. And then Gavin Sheets, I think, is a really important piece on this club just because he's a left-hand hitter who hits for power. And, you've got Moncada and Grandal, the switch hitters. Benintendi, your left-handed hitting left fielder. But the one guy with a lot of thump from that side of the plate is Gavin Sheets. And he's been really good. And, I think he's played a decent right field. He's a first baseman by trade, but has really worked hard to improve in the outfield. So he's earned his playing time. He kind of bided his time early in the year when Oscar Colas was getting a lot of at-bats, and now it's his time to shine again.
I was right now years old, Len, when I realized Yoan Moncada is hitting .315. Now, I know he's battled some injury. I don't know how much of a sample size that .315 is, but how about what you've seen from that young man?
Yeah, he missed 29 games recently with some back issues, so he hasn't had a ton of at-bats, but he was hot when he got hurt, and I think he has 3 doubles here in 4 games since he came back. Obviously, a guy, when he's at his best, he's working deep counts and taking walks. I really think Moncada and Grandal, 2 veteran switch hitters who have a good idea of the strike zone, really lengthen this lineup. And as you know, anyone who's watched the White Sox at all the last couple of years, it's a very aggressive lineup. So to have 2 guys who do work counts and take walks is really important. So, I don't want to put too much pressure on Moncada, but I do think offensively, if this team needs to or wants to get to where it should be, I think Moncada ends up being a very key guy.
There's a guy for the Yankees, Jake Bauers, that's playing really well, and I looked him up the other day. He's just 27. It felt like he was around forever within Cleveland and got waived by them and picked up by the Yankees. Moncada is the same way, Len, 27 years old. It feels like he's been around forever. I mean, you would think he's 29 or 30. I think he was just a teenager when he signed out of Cuba with the Red Sox before getting traded to Chicago. Like, that's prime for him. I mean, if he can start to figure it out at this point in his career, there's a lot of good years left for him.
Oh, there's no question. And Moncada, 27, Robert is younger, Vaughn is younger. They have a lot of exciting guys who should be either in the prime of their career or kind of leaning into that at this point. And you're right, that there's going to be a moment here where Yoan kind of gets back to where he was in 2019, but I think the injury bug has kind of prevented him from doing that. So if he can stay healthy, knock on wood, the rest of this season, defensively, he's really good. I think underrated over there at third base. But keeping him in the lineup every day is paramount. And if that happens, I think he's poised to put up some big numbers this year.
Yeah. Well, and besides last night, again, Len Kasper, the voice of the Chicago White Sox, here Sox baseball all season long on WHOW. Other than last night, Len, man, it's really been a struggle. You and I chatted right after opening day. You had that brilliant start from Dylan Cease. You had guys in the lineup that made contributions. There was a lot of excitement. And, man, ever since then, it's just been a flop of a season, at least so far, for the Sox. I mean, my friends that are Sox fans, they can't stop telling me about how bad this team is and all these things. How about just 15 and 28 on the year? It's been a struggle for Chicago so far.
It really has, and I think the silver lining is the next 12 are against the division. The AL Central, as a group, has not played particularly well. Minnesota, right now, the only team over 500. So if you look at the standings, it looks fairly dire, but the White Sox have not had that one hot spurt, and if they can rattle off at some point 8 of 10, 10 of 12, something like that, all of a sudden you look up and you go, wow, they're only 4-5 games out of first place with a lot of time left in the season. Their schedule was very difficult in the first month, and unfortunately, it came to pass that the better teams won all those series. I thought they played really good baseball against Houston and Tampa Bay. They ended up going 1-6 against the Rays, 3-4 against the Astros, but they were in most of those games. But what the biggest problem is, they went 1-3 against Kansas City, right? So those are the series now that the White Sox have to either win or sweep, and they'll get another shot at the Royals this weekend. They've got the Tigers coming up next week, and this Cleveland ball club kind of off to a middling start right now, and they may be a bit vulnerable. So you got to do some damage here the rest of this month of May. And all of a sudden you go into June feeling like there's a little light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. I mean, what is the old saying? I mean, if you're 500 right around Memorial Day, you've got to feel good about where you're at. They've got a couple of weeks to, like you've talked about, make up some ground. Maybe they don't get quite to 500. Maybe they're sitting, 20, 22, 25, and, somewhere in the low 30s in the loss column. But then you get into those warm days in June and July and August at I call it Comiskey. It's Guaranteed Rate Field now, I guess is what it's called. But man, you get those hot days there on the south side, and that ball can start to fly. And you're talking about some pretty good bats in this lineup that can make some things pop.
Yeah, that's right. And the other part is, look, the reality is nobody has run away with things in this division. And if you were in the Eastern division of either league or maybe the NL West, you would feel like, oh man, you're 13, 14 games out. But the fact is that the teams at the top have kind of allowed everybody to feel like they still have a chance, and you have to take advantage of that at some point.
Yep, no question. Len, I'll tell you what, sir, let's take a time out here. Let's you and I come back, talk some more White Sox, maybe talk about some things coming up for the White Sox and what else they can be doing as they get closer to the Memorial Day and into the summer months. Len Kasper, voice of the Chicago White Sox, with us. And again, you can hear White Sox baseball all season long on WHOW. More to come with Len on the morning show.
WHOW.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Wednesday. Jim Taylor on the RFD Radio Network. We start the day in the red. July corn, $5.65, down 16 1/4. September corn, $4.99, down 7 1/2, and December corn under the $5 mark, $4.98, down 7 1/4. July beans starting the day $13.53, down 11. August beans down 6, $12.92 1/4. November new crop $11.99, down 8. July wheat $6.34, down 13 1/2. September wheat down 13 1/2, $6.46 3/4. December wheat $6.64, down 13. July bean meal $4.27.20, that's up 30 cents. And on this Wednesday, July bean oil starting the day $47.31, down 14 cents. That's a look at the opening numbers at the Chicago Board of Trade for this Wednesday morning. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network.
If you think a new or used car is in your future, the time is now to call the Baum Chevrolet Buick sales team here in Clinton or Farmer City. This is Scott Baum. With a professional sales consultant in your corner, the vehicle search is easy. Meet with our sales team to go over your wants and needs. We'll start the search and do all the legwork for you. With so many models and options to choose from, we can help you get the information you need. BaumChevyBuick.com. Right from the start.
Dave Jackson here, owner of your Save-A-Lot store in downtown Clinton, here to talk to you about savings and shopping made simple. We offer huge savings in the absolute freshest and wildly popular meat and produce departments in the area. Simple means you won't need a card, have to shop on certain days, a phone app or a coupon book, look at an ad with roller coaster prices. Huge savings made simple. Plus, you get to see the same friendly staff every day. Clinton Save-A-Lot, great food, great prices, and really great people. Hope to see you soon.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Len Kasper, voice of the Chicago White Sox, on the phone with us. Here, Sox baseball all season long, right here on WHOW. You know, Len, we talked in the break about Liam Hendricks, and he continues to make rehab appearances and trying to get back from stage 4 non-Hodgkin lymphoma. How about just one, the effort it took him and the strength it took him to get through that battle and get back to playing baseball, but then just his journey back through baseball and trying to get back to where he was last year and all those things. How about that?
Well, it's quite a story. Liam is one of the greatest human beings you'd ever want to meet in baseball or otherwise. And he and his wife, Christy, have been such a huge part of the community with the White Sox and in Chicago in general. And they really have become a part of the fabric of this city. So it was a gut punch, certainly, when he announced in January that he was battling cancer. But everybody knew that he would fight through it. And, so far, so good. The velocity hasn't been great on his fastball, and that's building because, he's basically going through spring training again. And I think rebuilding that strength that he lost, having to go through those treatments. So, if he ends up back before June 1st, it's really remarkable, right? Because when we heard the news, the first priority is his health in general, forget about baseball. But then when you turn the page and you start to think about when he can resume his career, I don't know if the White Sox were counting on him pitching at all this season. And the fact that he could be back well before the All-Star break is a testament to his ability to work through all the physical and I think the mental issues that you have to battle when you're faced with a life-threatening situation. So at some point he'll be back. It's a great story, and I think it'll be a huge lift emotionally to this ball club and to the fan base. And then on top of that, how good he is. And if he's back to the form that he's shown as a White Sox closer, he might be the best in the American League. And that just makes everybody around him better. Garrett Crochet is back from Tommy John surgery. Those two additions, I think, really can provide a big jolt to this pitching staff.
That's almost a deadline type of acquisition. You talk about those guys that get healthy. You don't have to go out and make a trade for them. Those quality arms or those quality additions that you get back just from a health perspective. Sometimes those make all the difference. And you talked about the stabilization of a Hendricks and a Crochet coming back, Len. What does that do to the rest of the bullpen? Does that put them into more familiar roles, less high stress, high leverage roles? How do you see, you talked about that stabilization thing. How does that work for the rest of the pitching staff from your perspective?
Yeah, it takes pressure off everybody and just adds so much depth. Arguably, they could be the two best pitchers in the bullpen, when it's all said and done. Obviously, Crochet is much younger. Liam is the veteran. But it gives Pedro Grifol a lot more options late in ball games. Joe Kelly recently has been as good as we've seen him with the White Sox in his two seasons. Arguably, their two best relief pitchers so far have been Gregory Santos, who was kind of an under-the-radar acquisition from San Francisco in the offseason, and Keenan Middleton, a guy who's had some previous big league time, but did not make the opening day roster. So those guys, I think, will continue to get appearances. Aaron Bummer has gotten off to a slow start. Stuff looks good, but he hasn't been able to get away with any mistakes. Kendall Graveman has had his moments, but lately I think has been at his best. And then the one guy is Reynaldo Lopez. The numbers have not been pretty, but he has the potential to be a multi-inning dominant right-handed reliever. We saw it last year. He was that. And to get back to that form would be huge. And if that happens, you could look at this group as one of the best in the American League. It hasn't been on paper so far, but I think when you add Crochet and Hendricks, now all of a sudden you look at the 8-man group and you go, this looks really impressive.
Just got to get them healthy, Len. Get them healthy and get them to back these bats that are all of a sudden hitting really well. Speaking of starting pitching, Len, you talk about some guys that could really use a shot in the arm to turn it around. You saw a good outing from Lance Lynn last night. Lucas Giolito feels like he's been a little bit better of late. But you look at Dylan Cease, Michael Kopech, Mike Clevenger. Those are some guys that could really use to turn it around if the Sox are gonna turn this thing around. How about that?
Yeah, and on paper, again, you look at those names, and it looks like a strength, and it should be. You hope that Lance's start last night is a kickstart for him. Giolito has been the best starter overall. He gave up 3 in the first on Sunday against Houston, but then settled down and kept his team in the game. Clevenger pitches tonight against his old club. He's been inconsistent, but I think that there's, again, some light there at the end of the tunnel where, he's fully healthy for the first time in a while. And with a new club, maybe he's getting a little more comfortable. Kopech, the slider has not statistically been very good. The fastball has, but the slider has to improve, and they have pushed him back a couple of days, so he'll open that series against Kansas City. And then the ace of the staff, Dylan Cease, had a couple of really good starts to begin the year, then went into a bit of a funk over a 5 or 6 start period. His last one was really good. He feels like that was one that might unlock some things that he's been working on. And there's no secret here. The White Sox starting rotation has to be good if his team is going to be good and if they get back in the mix. And that means that they're all healthy and all humming every 5 days. And at some point, you hope that happens. And if it does, they're going to get on a big roll.
What have you seen from the first-year manager, Len, Pedro Grifol? What have you seen from him the first month or two of his career? How about his job so far?
I've been really impressed. I've gotten to know Pedro well. We talk every day for the manager show. And, I think the 10-game losing streak early, while it was brutal to go through for everybody, he kept his head up the entire time and takes this on as a huge challenge. And sometimes when you go through things like that early as a first-year manager, I think you learn some things about yourself. You learn some things about your team and your players and some of the personalities. And, adversity really does become educational, and you find out the things that you need to work on. You find out, the guys that you really can depend on. And nobody wants to go through it, but at the end of the day, if the White Sox can recover, it might be instructional in a weird way. And as I said, it's created a lot of urgency early in the season. And if there's any silver lining, the White Sox know that every game right now feels like a playoff game, and maybe that'll pay off down the road when the games get late and hopefully much more important with the standings crunched a little bit.
For sure. Len, it's always good to have you on the program, my friend. Thank you for doing this. You're the best, and we appreciate it, and we'll be tuned in for Sox baseball here on WHOW with yourself and the crew on the Sox radio network. So thanks again.
You got it, Seth. Anytime, man.
All right, Len Kasper, the voice of the Chicago White Sox, our guest on the phone today. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. And again, hear Sox baseball all season long on WHOW. The morning show streams again to Facebook and YouTube and live online all the time at DeWittDailyNews.com. Network news on the way.